Hello and welcome to the Black Hat Bushcraft channel. Anytime that I head into the woods, even if it's only planned to be a couple of hours or for a day trip, I still pack along with me some type of a headlamp. I think that's really important because you never know when something's going to happen and you get delayed and you end up being in the woods after sunset. And of course, once the sun goes down, it becomes much more difficult to see the hazards that are many about us when we're in the woods. There's all types of holes that we can step in and cause mechanical injury. There's tons of things to trip over. There's also hazards such as snakes and things like that that we might not be able to see if we don't have proper illumination. So I always carry with me a headlamp when I go into the field just in case. Obviously you can carry a flashlight, you can carry a headlamp, and there's nothing wrong with a flashlight, but I much prefer in the woods a headlamp. The first benefit to operating with a headlamp is your hands are free to do other things. Maybe I want to use my knife for some simple task. Instead of having to shuffle around a flashlight between using a knife, I just have that headlamp there, and so it leaves me free to focus on the task at hand. Maybe I'm carrying a walking stick, or if we're in uneven terrain, maybe I'm using trekking poles. That way both my hands are free to use those trekking poles, but at the same time I keep everything illuminated in front of me. If I'm using a flashlight, I have to shine the light where I want to see, but with a headlamp, and this being the second benefit, the light is where I need it to be. So if I want to look to my left, I simply look to my left and the light is shining there. If I want to look to my right, I look to the right, that's where the light will go, versus having to point the light and so forth. There's also the possibility when you're moving through the woods that you drop your light, and then I have to fumble around trying to pick that up. But with a headlamp, it's attached to your head, so chances of losing it or chances of dropping it are much less likely. So for these reasons, I will always prefer a headlamp in the woods over a traditional flashlight. There's nothing wrong with carrying a backup flashlight, but a headlamp for me is always going to be my primary form of illumination in the woods. Now, with all of that said, I've had the opportunity to use a lot of different headlamps over the years, and I personally own quite a few different models from different makers. I have lights from Petzl, Princeton Tech, Black Diamond, and even Lead Lenser. And all of these headlamps have served me really well over the years. They all, based on the model, have their different pros and cons, but they work and they've done the job well. But I've always been curious about headlamps from a particular company, and that is Olight. Now, I've never had the opportunity to work with an Olight headlamp. I have for years actually owned little Olight EDC type flashlights, and they've always been great lights. I actually have some friends that have used and abused Olights for longer than I have, and they've always bragged about the quality and how well these lights have held up. So again, I've always been curious and interested to try out an Olight headlamp and just not had the opportunity. A while back, I was contacted by a representative from Olight, and we kind of talked back and forth, and I explained to him that headlamps are my thing. That's what I really use, and in my videos, I rarely ever use like a handheld flashlight, but I'm always using headlamps. And so through that, I have gotten the opportunity to test out one of Olight's newer products, which is a headlamp called the Perun. Now, to be honest with you, the Perun is a different bird from all the other headlamps that I own, and I've had the chance to use it and test it a bit, and I'm pretty excited about the light. Again, it's like every other model. It has its pros and its cons. But again, I just wanted to take this opportunity to show you the light up close, talk about the features and functions, and just give you my personal impression of the light after using it. Olight products tend to be more of an upper line product and in price as well, so some people may be hindered by that. But just in case you've been curious about it, this will give you a close-up look and help you better form your opinion and decide for yourself if this is something that you're interested in. So without anything else said, let's take a close look at the Olight Perun. So with this first close-up, you may be thinking, that's not a headlight. And in some ways that's true, but it is also intended as a headlamp, and I'll explain that in just a minute. Initial inspection of the light is it has a 90-degree offset head, which I really like. I think that's cool because it reminds me of the old school military lights that I always carried as a kid. And it also has this spring steel pocket clip. That's also a nice feature if you want to use that for EDC carry, because you can clamp that thing in your pocket much like you would a knife. You can clamp it to your belt, and you can even clamp it to the brim of your hat, which would actually point light 90 degrees down into your lap if you were working on a project or something like that. So it's nice that you have the option of using this light in this way. It can be your EDC light. It can also be your headlamp when you go in the woods. The nice thing about this is you can quickly and easily pop this clamp off and convert this thing into more of the headlight feature. And that's what I want to talk about now, is the optional headband that you can get to convert this into a headlight. Now, let's go ahead and convert the Perun into the headlamp that I promised you. What I have here is the optional headband accessory for this light. And this is a really comfortable headband, and it's well designed. There's a little base plate here that perfectly fits the Perun, and this is magnetized. So when you go to place your light there, it just naturally clicks right into place with that magnet. What I really like about this is if you're right-handed or left-handed, you can set the light up ideal for you. The pressure switch on the head end of this light is how you cycle the light on and off and through its functions. If you want to do that left-handed, you can set it up as I have here. If you're right-handed and you prefer to use your right hand, you can flip the light over and do it just the same here. So I like that feature that you can put the switch where you want it to be with no problem. Doesn't make the light awkward in any way. Now, what you do here is you have a silicone band, and it just pulls over and locks very securely in place. So your light is held in place by a magnet, and it's also held in place by the silicone band. With that, you can grab the tail end of the light and easily adjust this up and down. I've heard some people say that because of this rough texture of the light that was hard to do, but not on mine. It's very simple, very smooth to twist up and down. You just grab hold of the tail end. If you grab the top, you tend to unscrew the light to where the battery is, but if you grab that tail cap, no problem to adjust that light up and down as needed. So now we have our Perun set up as a headlamp. Let's talk about further the features and functions of the light. Now, let's talk about one of the most important aspects of the Perun, and that is the actual modes of operation. And I'm going to go straight from the specs as given by Olight, and I'm going to start at the lower end of the spectrum and work my way up. First, it has a moonlight mode, which is 5 lumens, and it says that it will operate for 10 days at that setting. It has a low mode, which is 30 lumens, and that is at 47.5 hours. Medium, 120 lumens, which is 15 hours of operation time. And then high is 500 lumens at 4 hours. And then it has a turbo mode, and this is kind of a dual turbo mode, as it'll go to 2,000 lumens, which will blind you, I can promise you. It'll operate for 2.5 minutes at that level, and then it drops back to 800 lumens, in which case it will run for 160 minutes. And all of those times given are on a single charge of the battery. All right, and so with this light, it is a rechargeable light. You can buy additional batteries, so if you want to have backups on hand, you can do that. They're not terribly expensive when I look them up either, and those are available through Olight. But again, this is a rechargeable light, so you don't have to constantly buy new batteries to replace as it goes dead. Now that you're a little more familiar with the actual modes, let's talk about how to cycle through them. And for me, this was one of the strong suits of this light. Some headlamps that I own can be a little fiddly trying to get through the different modes, but with this one, it seemed to be very instinctive, and I picked it up very quickly. To turn this light on to the moonlight mode, you simply hold this button down for 1 second. That puts you in the lowest setting, that 5 lumen setting. And to be honest with you, I've found that a lot of times that's really all I need. That conserves battery, which I'm all about conserving those resources when we can, but it'll allow me to read my map or to look in my pack and find whatever it is I'm looking for. Just, that's a good mode. And it doesn't blow your night vision. Some headlamps I've got, when you turn them on, they come on high, and then right away that light kind of blows your night vision for a minute or two. With this, you're coming on to the lowest setting, so it gives you just the light you need without, again, messing up your night vision. If you hold the button down for 1 second, you'll go into the low mode, which is that 30 lumen setting. And a lot of times when the moonlight wasn't enough, this is perfect, okay? If we hold down for another second, we go into the medium mode, which is 120 lumens. All right, same thing again. Now we go into the high mode, which is 500 lumens. And now from there, we go back to low. Now, if we want to go to the turbo mode, we just do a quick double click, and that will blind you, all right? And that's that 2,000 lumens on a full charge for 2.5 minutes, and then it drops back to 800. All right, and I conserve my battery, and I don't use that one unless I actually have to. When you do put that high mode on, the light does get a little bit warm, to be expected. This light also has a sensor, so let's say that we're in that high mode and something gets close, that thing will drop back to a lower setting. And that'll prevent from burning a piece of equipment. Let's say somehow this thing accidentally came on to turbo in your pack and it started getting hot and you had it up against some sensitive piece of equipment. This will prevent it from doing that, which is a nice feature. I'll also add that the Perun has a really nice lockout feature. Let's say we're carrying this thing in our pack and we want to make sure that this button doesn't accidentally get depressed and deplete our battery. So all you have to do with the light in the off position, hold this button down for 2 seconds and the light will flash. At that point, if I push the button, you can see the light flashes, but it will not stay on. To deactivate that feature, we just simply hold it down for 2 seconds and then the light will come on. At that point, we can either turn it off or we can cycle through the different levels. But at any point we want to lock that thing out, hold it for 2 seconds, it'll give you a flash. When it goes off, it's now in lockout mode. I really like that feature, and if I'm carrying this in my pack, I will use that just to make sure my battery doesn't accidentally get depleted. One other really nice feature that the Perun has that I haven't mentioned is the SOS mode. And generally we think of SOS as being 3 of anything. It could be 3 fires on the horizon or 3 big X's laid out in an open field. In this case, 3 clicks of the switch on the Perun will give you a nice SOS signal. Rapidly do the 3 clicks and the Perun does its job. Gives you a nice SOS signal so that you could signal out to help as needed. That's one of those things you hope you never have to use, but it's nice to know that you have it in case. Another thing that I thought was worth noting is the fact that the Perun only has white light. And a lot of the headlamps that I'm used to using in the field have a red LED or a green or a blue, and sometimes all 3. And each of those has its own individual uses in the field. Whenever I'm in a group camp with other people, I'll always switch to the red or the green, as it's not as detrimental to people's night vision. When you're in the dark and your eyes dilate and you get adjusted to that dark and you can start to see things better, you get shined with that bright white light and now it throws you back off. It confuses the eyes. So I always try to use those other colors in a group setting. The Perun doesn't have that as an option. If that's not something that you normally use, or that's not a feature that you're accustomed to using, then there's no downside to that. But for me, that's one thing that I miss when I'm carrying the Perun, is the fact that I can't switch to that red or that green, and you don't have that blood tracking blue light that a lot of people will use when they're hunting. So just something to consider with this particular light. Now, when it comes time to charge the Perun, it's a very simple affair. You have a USB adapter, and on the tail cap of the Perun, you just connect this magnet. Very simple. Nice feature. It goes right into place and you plug that into any USB adapter and now you can charge the light. So charging this is a breeze. One other detail I think is very worth mentioning is the fact that the Perun has an IPX8 waterproof rating, and you can look up what that rating actually means, but for me all it means is I should be able to put it in this bottle of water. You can see it's completely submerged down in that water. And right now on my watch it is 2:09. I don't know how well you'll be able to see that. We'll leave it in there for a minute or two and come back and see if it still works after that. All right, so it's 2:16, so this light has been submerged for over 5 minutes. So now, let's see. Oh, still works, sweet. That was completely submerged, again, for over 5 minutes. I see no water inside the lens. And as you can see, no hang-ups about turning on, so I'm impressed. I can't think of many situations where my flashlight would be submerged for over 5 minutes, so I definitely am pleased with that, and I think that this light in that capacity will serve me well. One of the things that's a little bit different about the Olight Perun from most of the headlamps that I'm used to is the weight. Being that this light is made out of solid metal, that adds some weight to it. Most of my headlamps are between 4 and a 4.5 ounce mark, whereas this one comes in at just over 6 ounces, and that is the light and the headband together. Just the light itself weighs 3 3/4 of an ounce, if I remember correct, so about 1.5 times roughly what I'm used to carrying in a headlamp. While none of us are super excited to add extra weight to our pack, we should definitely take into consideration that the Olight Perun is a solid metal frame light. And with that has to come some extra durability. And if this is the one light that you're carrying into the field to depend on, then that's something that we should consider. And maybe that extra 2 ounces of weight may be worthwhile. That's something you have to decide for yourself. Now that you've had a chance to look at the features and functions of this Olight Perun, let's jump in my 1982 DeLorean and see how it does tonight. All right, so welcome to the future. We fast forwarded to nighttime, And the actual lighting that I have right now is nothing but the natural moonlight. And what I'm going to do is use the Perun on the lowest setting, which is the moon setting. Now, I'm sure it's not showing up great on the camera. I don't expect that it will. Let's bump it up to the low setting. All right, so that's on low. And I mean, honestly, that is really more light than I would need. Again, I don't expect that that's showing up great on camera, but it's more than enough light. Let's bump it up to medium. All right, that's the medium setting. And honestly, that's probably like high on a lot of my lamps that I'm used to using. And again, I'm sure it's not showing up well, but that really lights up things more than I even need. Let's go to high. All right, wow, that's like daylight out here. I might be calling attention to myself. So anyway, that's the high setting. Now, let's go to turbo. And that's the turbo. And it's like daytime out here. And just so you can see, I mean, this thing really lights up the horizon. That's a lot of light. I can see all the way out across that field. Just an impressive setting that turbo is. And that right there is why we have to have a headlight at night, so you don't walk face first into one of those guys. What I'm going to do is turn the Perun onto its turbo mode, and we'll take just a short walk and look out across a soybean field here. It is just impressive to me how well this thing lights up, like 180-degree area for me to see. And this field is probably about 250, 300 meters out to the wood line, and I can see most of the way out. And I know that that doesn't show up well on camera, but this thing just lights this field up. And it just gives you a great field of view. It's not like other headlamps that I own where it's more of a spot effect, or maybe a large spot for which is called flood, and then like a really tight spotlight. This thing just floods the whole area with light. And it's just very impressive, very effective. This light is on this turbo mode to light everything up. If you really want to see what's going on around you, this setting will definitely do it. All right, so with everything I've shown you and everything I've said, let's sum it up into a list of pros and cons. This is my opinion. The cons first. Number one, the light is a little bit heavy. It's about 2 to 2.5 ounces heavier than what I'm used to using. It's not a big deal. You have to decide for yourself if that weight makes the difference. One thing I don't like is the fact that it's a headlamp, but you have to purchase the band separately, the elastic headband separately. However, it's a nominal fee. It's like $15, I think, to buy the headband. So it's not super expensive, but I kind of would like to see them packaged together. The fact that it's a rechargeable light. So if you don't have an extra battery and your battery goes dead in the field, you're going to have to charge that up, and you'll have to have some type of a rechargeable battery pack or something like that. I would recommend to anybody who gets this light, get an extra battery, keep it on full charge. That way, if your battery goes dead in the field, you have a backup. That's the nice thing about using a light that uses AA's or AAA's is you just throw some more batteries in. Another thing that I mentioned was the fact that it only has white light and not the color. So I talked about that. And the last thing is the fact that this is the upper line flashlight, so it's going to come with more of an upper line price than others. However, for that, you have to consider that it's rechargeable. And so you're not going to constantly have to buy batteries. You're going to be able to easily recharge this. And so over time, it will save you money. That's a pro. All right. Another pro of the light is the fact that it's very ultra bright. With that 2000 lumens, if you really need to spot something quick or signal, you have the option of doing that. The battery life is really good. So while it's a rechargeable battery, it holds charge for a long time. If you're out for a day or two, you should be fine with that with no problems. Ease of operation. I really like the way this light functions. As I showed you with the button, it's just very easy to remember how to use it. It becomes instinctive quickly. The light's very comfortable. When I wear it on my head, it's balanced, it's comfortable, more so than other lights that I've used. The fact that it's solid metal construction is durable. Olights are well known for their quality, and I believe this one is no exception. And I like the fact that it's versatile. So if it's your only light, it can be your headlamp, it can be your EDC light. You can carry it on your pocket, or you can carry it, as I mentioned, in other ways. So I like the versatility of this light. So with all those things, it's up to you to decide if this is something that you think is worth it and something that you might want or need in your kit. I will mention that right now Olight is having a flash sale, and I have posted some information down below in the description box, and I would recommend to you, if you have any interest in this, to take a look, because that flash sale is offering 20 to 45% discount on Olight products, and it would be definitely worth your time to take a look. So there's a link down below in the description box. Click on that thing, check it out. Won't cost you anything to check it out, and just see if this is something you're interested in. So again, I'm giving you my impression, my experience with this light, and you can take that information and use it in any way that you see fit. All right, so I'd like to thank you guys for taking the time to tune in for this, and I hope it's been informative for you, especially if you've been in the market for the Olight Perun, or maybe you've just been looking at it and considering it. Hopefully this gave you a closer look at the functions and the features, and just my impression of the pros and cons. This light has a lot of pros. There's a lot of good things about the light. I've enjoyed using it. I've used it every single day, but in all disclosure, I've not been carrying it for a long period of time. So I'll have to come back later and update you guys of how it does over time. But initially, this is my thoughts on it, pros, cons. In my opinion, the pros outweigh the cons, but the cons are still there. So that's, again, something I'm going to give you my impression, my thoughts. You take that information, apply it to you, and decide for yourself how you feel about the light. Thank you again for your time, interest, all the kind words, all the support. If you haven't subscribed, I hope you'll go ahead and click that subscribe button. I hope you'll ring the bell so that you can stay notified of all the upcoming videos. There'll definitely be many more coming soon. And until those next videos, you guys take care, be safe, and God bless. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see similar content, please subscribe to the Black Hat Bushcraft channel. Thank you for your time and interest, and I hope you'll come back soon. Take care.